Hello and good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of A Coffee with Chris. I had to wheel out my old friend for this one, but before we get into the introduction, as always, just wanted to say a massive thank you to our charity partner, 𝗖𝗄𝗄𝗲, who help local people affected by cancer. Surely this man needs no introduction. His name is Jack Reeve. He is the founder of Talk Norwich City, the first and largest Norwich City fan channel, and home to, of course, this dodgy podcast called the TNC podcast. Jack, let's kick off with a question to get stuck into it. YouTube is the second biggest search engine in the world. Why do you think so many people underestimate the power of this platform?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me, Chris. And I do indeed have my coffee with Chris. After a brilliant array of guests, I've watched everyone. Obviously, your budget is somewhat depleted now to get me on. Yeah, look, YouTube is a fascinating one, and I think it's interesting the way you phrase that in terms of it being a search engine. I think that's exactly right. It is a search engine. It's for video, and how companies and how organizations use it is very flexible and up to them, but it has to be viewed at the absolute forefront of every marketing campaign. Video is incredibly personal. Video is incredibly engaging if done right, and that far outweighs the majority of kind of traditional tactics when it comes to marketing. So in terms of it being overlooked, I think there's a couple of reasons. I think the term YouTube, people still associate YouTube with 14-year-old gamers in their bedroom, and look, that was once the once was the way it was a decade ago, but the landscape has changed hugely since then. And also, video is really hard to do, so it's easier to overlook it and to put it to one side instead of engaging with it and trying with it. So, look, I think for most people now, they are taking it seriously. They understand the power in it. But it's difficult to nail, and that will put people off, not just with YouTube, but with other ventures as well. So look, it's time to get serious about it now, and I think people are starting to cotton on to that.
I agree with you, Jack. Lots of gold in that already. I think LinkedIn went through a similar phase where people were really neglecting this platform. They didn't understand the power of it, and now they've cottoned onto it. We're seeing huge businesses being built solely off of LinkedIn. I think people are starting to just about get their head around YouTube, and given that it is, as I say, that second biggest search engine in the world, I guess that there is this misconception of the power of it and what it can do. Jack, when it comes to YouTube, because our audience is business owners, how do businesses get involved in this, Jack? Because as you say, this isn't just a platform for creators, but should businesses be starting a YouTube channel? Should they sponsor creators? How can they muscle in on this huge platform?
Well, look, I think it's worth starting this with almost sympathy to business owners, because you and I, our lives revolve around social media. It's your full-time job. It's my full-time job. But when you're having to conquer Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, it is an overwhelming experience, particularly if that's not your full-time gig and if you've not grown up with it. So it's overwhelming as someone that's in it day in, day out. I can't imagine the stress that it brings if it's not at the forefront of your mind. Mm-hmm. In terms of YouTube, I think, and look, I think one of the ways I approach life in general probably is that perfectionism is almost the worst thing you can have, because it puts you off trying new things, and no one, when it comes to YouTube and social in general, is perfect. And often with video in particular, there are so many variables and facets that come with it that if you are trying to make the perfect video on your first attempt, you will never end up releasing it. And that becomes really dangerous, because you keep putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. And then you're a year down the line, you go, oh, if I'd only started a year ago, where could I be? So I think just start and look, let's not put rubbish out there, but you can learn on the job. And I think that's the best way of doing it. I started TNC in 2012 and the landscape was very different then. And of course you have to pivot as you go, but I didn't know how to video edit. I didn't know how to shoot. I didn't know how to talk particularly at that point. And you just learn as you go. So just start is probably the main advice here. In terms of away from content creation and how you market, I think it's a really interesting space, because I think we've gone through a few phases on YouTube. You started out, let's say 2012-ish, 2013. At that point, creators weren't making money. Google AdSense wasn't around. That's the advertising platform in which creators can kind of generate cash from. Brands weren't really chucking money at YouTube because they didn't know what it was. Fast forward a few years, it almost goes the other way, and brands start throwing obscene amounts of cash at YouTube and hoping that some of it sticks, almost in an attempt to make it work. A lot of money was wasted. And I think we're at a really good point now where influencers are getting a good deal and a fair deal, but brands and businesses can cash in with really good value marketing and personalized marketing. And there will always be a channel for you that suits your demographic, that is bang on in terms of audience, and it is up to you to find that. The great thing with YouTube kind of marketing is that you can tell a creator exactly what you want from it. You can review it before it goes out, and I'm not sure you get that kind of personability with other forms of advertising. Every form of advertising has its place, of course, but I still think there's really good value marketing to be had on YouTube. It's just about picking the right message and the right person to deliver that for you.
So much goodness in that, Jack. That I think it's interesting. I really want your take on these 2 points. First of all, I think YouTube used to be this place where you only published this perfectly polished, TV ad type thing, right? And especially from a business perspective, that was like the showpiece that lived on YouTube, and that's all. It just lived there. And I think we've now moved from this sort of almost online portfolio for videos to this performance world where you are looking to grow communities, obviously, like you've done on Talk Norwich City and beyond with the other channels that you're associated with. So I want your take on that as well. But I also think when it comes to the money side of things, I'm also intrigued to get your opinion on this, because you've said it yourself. So many businesses waste money with perhaps the wrong type of creator on YouTube, but at the same time, the opportunity is huge, right? Because in my opinion, anyway, YouTube is a platform where people spend longer on it. They are literally watching YouTube over TV in a lot of circumstances now, right? So the opportunity's there. So what's your take on those 2 points, Jack?
Well, let's start with getting value out of it. And I think, every campaign that we've done personally on YouTube and away from that as well, essentially, you can tell those people that the business is paying you fancy numbers and how many views we've delivered and likes and whatever. The only real thing that they care about is if money's coming back into their pocket. And the hope that this is a two-way stream, right? We sometimes have brands come to us at TNC and go, we'd love to back you, we'd love to sponsor you, etc., etc. And you need to have that honest conversation at the start and say, I'm not sure if our audience fits what you're trying to sell or what you're trying to promote. And actually, here's a channel that might suit you better. Because the last thing that I want and you want and any YouTube creator really wants for long-term relationships is taking the money, delivering nothing in return other than kind of vanity metrics. And then they go, well, why has it not worked? And actually deep down, at the start that it's probably not going to work. So having really honest two-way conversations, setting the brief out really early doors, and then hopefully you can come to an agreement that suits both parties, I guess. So I think that's key in terms of value. What was the other question about
Just the point about it was the point, Jack, about how YouTube's moved away from this polished content platform to actually it's more fast moving. People are publishing more content more often. Obviously now YouTube have released their shorts area as well, which is their direct response to TikTok. So I'd be interested to get your take on that too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it all boils down to, with everything that we do, whether it's you know, helping businesses on Twitter, whether it's us creating content on YouTube, it's about building community, and that's the absolute end goal for everything here. And almost, you know, there are two types of YouTube now, and you mentioned there, people are sitting down of an evening, and instead of, you know, switching the telly on for a few hours, they will switch on their favorite creators. So there is an element where you do need almost like TV production levels to really cut it. And also that element where people want to sit down and they want to feel like they're having a chat with their friend. You know, they want an unpolished vlog of someone's day. They want a one-on-one looking down the lens as if it feels like you're talking to them. And you know, it's almost similar to radio, really. I mean, radio's, you know, the most beautiful, unpolished media wave it going, really. It's someone sat in front of a microphone and someone at the other end listening on the radio. It feels like you're in that conversation, and that's the beauty of it. You know, when I watch YouTube, I want to feel like I've got company, and I think that's what everyone else is looking for. Whether you're watching it for education or entertainment, you want to feel part of that community, and that's what everyone is trying to do. And if you crack that, then that's exactly what you've set out to do.
So come on then, Jack. You've said that word, community. It's one that's bandied about in marketing quite a lot now. When it comes to YouTube, and as you say, you know, and it's fair to say that, you know, you've cracked the code with Talk Norwich City. How can business owners, how can creators create a real, genuine, engaged community on this platform that they might consider monetizing in the future?
Well, I think one of the words, I think there's probably two main pillars for the way I approach it, and it might be overly simplistic, but I think it works over time. You've mentioned one of it, real. I think you need to be real. There's, you know, a million and one other channels out there doing something, and you don't even necessarily have to be different to what they're doing, but you have to stay real to yourself, because otherwise people will find someone further along the journey that's doing it better than you, and that won't attract everyone. That will put people off, and you have to be okay with that. But you have to be real to yourself and your brand values, and stay really consistent with that. And that leads on to the next one. It's consistency. And I think it's a really boring answer, and people probably don't want to hear it. You know, you can apply it to all areas of your life, and I'm better at that in some areas than others. But, you know, we have posted on Talk Norwich City over 2,000 videos. You know, it didn't generate a single penny of cash for 5 years. And that was the slog, not the slog because we've always enjoyed it, but that was what we were willing to do, because there was always the vision that one day it would possibly work. There are so many people now, particularly with the rise of TikTok, where you can generate an audience overnight, but that sustainability is questionable. And I think it'll be interesting to see where these big creators on TikTok now are in a couple of years. You see it with Love Island people coming off the show. It's easy to generate a few 100,000 followers. Whether you can maintain that, you know, that's the difficulty. So it's consistency. If you stay consistent and you believe in what you do, it doesn't matter if you've got 100 viewers or 10,000 viewers. Those 10 viewers can be incredibly valuable over the long run.
I think maybe the unsexy thing that should be discussed here, Jack, is that the mindset around YouTube and growing a community, growing a YouTube channel is all about, obviously, as you've said, being real, showing that authentic side, not trying to be everyone else. Consistency, great, amazing. For me, I think the other layer here that we need to talk about is the mindset. So many people, I don't know about yourself, Jack, but so many people have come to me saying, yeah, Chris, I want to become a YouTuber, or I want to grow my business on YouTube and start making money from the ads now. And how do I get sponsorship now? And I'm like, you need to publish consistent quality content first. So do you think people approach YouTube with almost this money mindset rather than community mindset?
Yeah, I think so. And that can be really dangerous. I think one of the best bits of advice I learned really early on with YouTube, and probably social in general, is you never know who's watching. You never know who's the one viewer amongst that 101 viewers that could potentially change things for you. Very early days on TNC. I was probably averaging, I don't know, 600-700 views a video, which at the time was really great, but small in comparison to now. And one of those viewers happened to was an owner of a car garage in Somerset, big Norwich fan. And he messaged me and said, look, I'd really love what you're doing. I see that things have stalled a little bit. Let me give you some cash for a new camera, and I'll be your first sponsor. And really, from that point onwards, one, it gave me the belief that this could happen. Two, suddenly you have someone backing you, and other companies start to go, okay, if they're thinking it works, then we should too. And that can be the kind of turn in luck you need. But if you're a business and you're looking to, I don't know, sell your services or something, if you're getting 10 views, right, that is tiny in the world of YouTube, but one of those could be a potential customer, and you just never know. You never know what's around the corner.
On this topic, Jack, I'd love it if you could share with our audience the story of some very large American investors with Talk Norwich City. Why don't you share that story?
Yeah, well, I mean, you probably know it better than I, but yeah, we do these watch along things, very similar layout to this, but it's live, and we watch the Norwich games, don't we? And it's you almost become numb to the numbers after a while, because there's so many numbers buzzing about, and they were doing okay. And it was Reading, wasn't it? It was a Reading game a couple of years ago, and Norwich City's new majority shareholders, the 𝗖𝗵𝗿𝗲𝗲, had lost their stream, I think, or something, for their to watch the actual game, and had stumbled upon our stream online. So suddenly we had some of the wealthiest members of America tuning into us, and off the back of that, you built a relationship with them, and then we landed the exclusive interview before any major media organization, because they trusted us, they knew that we were real, and they wanted to tell their story on something that they had belief in, and that had a direct connection to fans. And I guess that's everyone will have that kind of story for themselves. But I always find that fascinating, almost put the numbers aside. Look, they're important to a degree, but one of those people has the potential to change things for you. And I think that's a really beautiful thing.
This podcast specifically is about YouTube, Jack, but actually the message that's coming across off the back of sharing that story is you never know who's watching, who's looking at your content. People are more aware than ever before of leaving a digital footprint on any social media platform, whether it be LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, X, etc., etc. The list goes on. And so, but you don't know who one of those numbers belongs to, right? And so don't lose sight. Don't fall for the vanity metrics of likes and things like that. I think that's a great message, Jack. Just
before we move on, like, that can work the other way as well, in a sense of you can put people off you. You might have a potential customer or client that's about to pull the trigger with you, and you say something wrong. I've had it before where, there's been something on the horizon, and maybe we've chased something that maybe wasn't quite right, or said something that wasn't true to us because we're chasing a headline or something, and that can put people off. So it can work both ways, but it comes back to that thing: be real to yourself, don't chase trends, be really trustworthy that the journey will take you in that right direction. And hopefully, look, luck is involved here, but hopefully that will get you to the point that you want to be.
I'd like some real talk on the finance side of things, Jack, because obviously the Talk Norwich City YouTube channel is now how many subscribers has the channel got now?
26,000 and a bit.
Right. So in the YouTube world, that it sounds like a lot maybe to some people, but it's actually not a lot compared to most creators. So I'd like some real talk from you, Jack, in terms of the finance side of things, if you wouldn't mind disclosing that for business owners and creators, because I think there's this perception of, Talk Norwich City's got, a really powerful, engaged community with, that's resulted in raising over £40,000 worth of donations for charity, for example, and things like that. But yet it's not the ads on YouTube that brings in the money, right? It's the sponsors. So I'd really like to understand how the finance side of things works, because I think again, people come into it with the wrong mindset, right?
Yeah, so I would say for the traditional creator, there's probably 3 income streams that are you know, the mainstream way. You've got Google AdSense, where you are paid. The channel has to be of a certain size, and you can find that online, but you essentially get paid a very small figure per view, essentially. You've then got brand deals. So a company comes to you and says, we will pay you X amount of money for a video or a sustained amount of videos. And then maybe like appearances. So you'll pay to go on other channels or certain deals. Now, Talk Norwich City is in a unique sense where our audience, as you say, in the grand scheme of things, is fairly small, but it's the only one of its kind, and it's uber engaged, and it's niche, and you can make that work. Mm-hmm. So it got to a point of TNC where, you know, we needed to start getting bigger. People started to, you know, needed to get paid. There are overheads. We needed to generate cash for it to be viable, particularly when, you know, I was of an age where I needed to start, you know, to pay rent and your mortgage and whatever. So it suddenly goes from being a hobby to something that, if it's not making money, won't work any longer. So we had to sit down and think, and we went, well, it's not going to be from Google AdSense because we're not generating enough views. You need to be turning over some serious numbers for that to become a decent wedge of cash. But we said, there's no one else doing it here. And we think we can create some real value for, at the time, local businesses, and still local businesses to an extent. But, you know, hopefully we can get to a level where you've got kind of national businesses wanting in. So we created a kind of a sponsorship package. And I say that in quite a broad sense. And it's, you know, every company that comes to us gets a different kind of service. But we needed to essentially create sponsorship revenue. So, you know, company X will come to us and say they want to sell something, or we want brand awareness, or, you know, we want our product on one of your videos, and we can create something for that in return for cash. And so that was the way in which we monetized. And I think that's the beauty of YouTube, is whatever channel size you are, whether you've got 10 million subscribers or 1,000 subscribers, there should be a way to make that financially viable. Now, you need to think out of the box, and you need to get creative with it, and you need people to believe in you. But it's not a one dimension. I think people come onto the platform and go, well, the only way we're going to be making money is if we're driving, you know, X million views per month, and that pays the bills through Google AdSense. Actually, if you look at the majority of successful creators' incomes, I would say 30% is made up from Google AdSense. The rest is made up from brand deals and kind of similar packages to what we have. Yeah.
I really appreciate that real talk, Jack. I think, again, there's this perception that, you know, things are done to drive views, and therefore you get more money for more views. And of course you do, but it's so small that it's practically worthless. And the model for Talk Norwich City is built on sponsorships up front for the season. I find a really interesting thing for people to think about. Just on the topic of views, because that is a lot of people are interested in that, and I think that's essentially the cracking of the code that everyone wants to achieve when they first come on YouTube. Jack, what's your advice, tips, tricks, no nonsense chat around thumbnails and headlines? Because what I'd learned over the years is that YouTube was one of the only platforms where you can actually tweak and optimize the thumbnail and headline, and yet it won't damage performance. It could even improve performance, where if you do that on another social platform, it will penalize you in the algorithm for that. So I'd really like to get your advice on that, Jack.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, you know, sadly for the creative minds, actually the way that these pieces of content are packaged is almost more important than the content itself. And obviously the content needs to be good once said person is clicked through. But I mean, if you look at this from a wider sphere, you know, newspapers, when they were booming in the 80s, they had tons of people solely writing headlines. They had front page designers solely designing front pages. So there's no real difference from a newspaper front page kind of headline splash and a front page compared to a YouTube title and thumbnail. if you scroll through, and let's look at this as a consumer as opposed to creators, if you're scrolling through, whether it's Twitter or YouTube, you're going through hundreds, if not thousands of pieces of content per day. You might click on 5, maybe not even that. So you need to be grabbed, you need to be enticed in, and then once they're enticed in, you need to back it up with the content. Otherwise they're not sticking about. You know, keeping people is really, really difficult. I think that's why retention should be one of the key metrics that businesses and brands look at when it comes to creators. It's key to be able to keep people engaged. So look, there are experts out there whose sole job it is now is to create YouTube thumbnails. That will be their full-time job. Yeah. And it will be different for every channel. It's almost trial and error, but please, please, please don't overlook it. You can create the best bit of content ever. I see it with people, create the best bits of content ever, not uploading a thumbnail. It's not going to work. So wow. Every single aspect of this, and don't let it overwhelm you, because you can have fun with it and you can experiment, and you're not going to get every piece of the puzzle perfect. But as you say, you can release a YouTube video. This is the joy of it. You can release a YouTube video. After a week, you go, oh, not quite sure that it's performing the way I want. I think that there's more to be had here. Go back in, change the thumbnail, tweak the title, then see how it gets on. You're not going to be penalized unless it's time sensitive. You're not going to be penalized on chopping and changing once it's uploaded. Go out there, learn. I guess it's the same as any new kind of technology or whatever. Go out and learn what makes a thumbnail clickable, how many words to use in a title. Do you caps it up? Do you not? Little things like that can make a huge, huge difference. But there's no set rule, and it will be different for each channel. But the importance of it is huge.
That's fantastic advice, Jack. Thank you for sharing that with us. I guess just to sort of wrap things up, Jack, and we could do probably around 2, 3, and 4 on YouTube for sure. And I'd really like you to highlight potentially the top mistakes. What mistakes are businesses making when it comes to starting a YouTube, growing a YouTube, keeping an engaged community? Why do businesses suck on YouTube, basically?
Look, there's plenty of mistakes. I think the key thing, you know, we said it at the start, and consistency. It's easy to say to anyone, stay consistent. Like, I'm not consistent in certain areas of my life because I find it difficult and I don't enjoy it, right? But YouTube, we found the formula where we do something that we love. And I think the real difficult thing is it's quite easy, particularly at the start, to chase something that maybe your audience wants to an extent, or you're chasing a trend and that works. So you follow that and you keep going. And then you get to a point and you go, I'm not actually enjoying what I'm making, but I've built this audience and they kind of want it, and you burn out. And I've seen it happen so often. You burn out. You get a year in, you've built what you assume is an audience, but you're no longer making something that you like. So if you're start something that you enjoy. Be selfish with it. Do it because you want to do it, and the audience will come. Everyone always says to me, and I think there's a place for this. Everyone says, you know, what does your audience want? What do they want? I almost don't care what they want. I'll make something that I want, and I hope that they like it. If they don't, they'll go. And the ones that do, that will stay, and we will go on that journey together. So I think be selfish with it at the start, and almost attract your tribe, and your tribe will follow you through thick and thin. If not, you'll get to a stage and you'll think it's glorious at the start, but you will get to a stage where you go, I don't like this, I'm sacking it in. And that's where most people fail.
Refreshing. Jack Reeve, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on A Coffee with Chris today.
It's been a delight. Thanks, mate.
And thank you so much to everyone watching this on YouTube, or listening back on all of the audio platforms. Don't forget, please do go and support our charity partner. This content is brought to you in association with Big C, who help local people affected by cancer. I'll see you again this time next week for another episode of Coffee with Chris.